Welcome, DGens, far and wide, to another edition of the DGen Docs. That is right, folks. What is going on? We are talking about none other than the NFC Beast, the best division in football. That is right. That is not personal opinion. That is fact. The only division with a Super Bowl champion with every team. But we are going to be breaking down each team. We are talking about free agency. We're talking about fantasy football takes. We're talking about actionable news that is going to get you some money, cold hard cash in your pockets. And of course, we're breaking down all the injury analysis. So join us, two healthcare professionals, as we look at football through a little bit of a different lens and ultimately make you a better fan and try to make you a little bit of money. This NFC East edition of the DGen Docs on the Sports Gaming Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times your entry with their new Pick 8. Sign up with promo code SGPNDOC. That is all caps, one word, SGPNDOC, to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPNDOC. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get the best data-driven props and picks from Rhythm. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. I am your host, as always, the OG DGen Doc, Sebastian, and I'm joined by my co-host, my brother in degeneracy, no one other than Mr. Derek Bennett, a.k.a. Professor Locks himself. How are we doing, brother?
Well, I'd first like to start off by seeing if we could replace that added B to NFC East with an L that your G-men will be taking a lot of this upcoming NFL.
Oh, wow. Okay. We are not even
the NFL least.
We are not even waiting a second. We are not waiting a single second to get into that. Okay. All right. Well, no, I will veto that, and absolutely not, because does your division have a Super Bowl champion in every team?
No, I mean the Steelers just are the tied for the most Super Bowl championships.
Okay, well, we're talking about what about the Browns? The
Ravens are much more in the conversation than anybody in the NFC East. But anyways.
Oh, okay. All right. I see how it is.
What have anybody in the NFC East besides the Eagles done as of late?
As of late. Well,
a little bit.
Okay. All right. Well, I understand that we're gonna agree to disagree on this one, but hey, what is up, folks? We are here, and yes, we are breaking down the NFC East. But before we get into that, what's on the mind there, brother? What do we got this week in sports here? We're recording this on Saturday, June 29th. What's going on?
Well, we've had a couple drafts this week. Obviously, not the NFL draft, as you know, both of us tend to keep our eyes on a little bit more. But with the NBA draft, the NHL draft last night, a bunch of new up and coming, hopefully future stars of those leagues entering. But you know, there was one guy that was kind of headlined the NBA draft for better or worse. In Bronny, you know, he did get drafted by the Lakers in the second round.
Yeah,
you know, but like if you were him, do you want that? Like going into your career, like do you want that over your head? Like from everything that I was hearing, it didn't sound like he was probably like he was a fringe draft pick.
Yeah,
right. So.
I mean, look, I know NBA draft is not the NFL draft, right? The 55th pick does not mean the 55th pick what it does to the NFL. So I know things are a little bit different.
155th pick.
Yeah, exactly. So I know it's like, you know, how many of those guys even really make a roster at the end of the day? So at least they didn't stretch and get them at 17 in the first round where they picked up Dalton Connect, who I think is going to be a player who can make some impact. But, you know, I'm kind of torn on this, right? People have thrown out the nepotism thing. It is absolutely nepotism, but it happens. It happens all the time in sports in the world. So we really I'm not going to crush the James family for this. Like, dude, that's honestly pretty freaking cool. Like if I could play a professional sport with my son, I would do it in a fucking heartbeat. Especially like, it's not like we're talking about someone who's like barely contributed to the game. I mean, we're talking about someone who's, you know, top 5 conservative beliefs of all time, right?
Oh,
So
definitely.
I think this was, this was one of those things where it's definitely funny because it's nepotism, but it's like I'm not gonna crush them for it. And also, I know I was originally looking at his stats, like you're like, damn, like this guy kind of sucks, but we do have to remember, like he did almost freaking like die. He
I
had
was
like
gonna say,
pretty
I think
serious,
that's the thing that a lot of people are like forgetting about. Like,
yeah,
you also have to celebrate that the dude is getting drafted by an NBA team. Like, the
yeah,
dude passed out, and like you said, he almost almost died
yeah,
almost basically a year ago. Going into his freshman year of college. So,
yeah. I
I
mean,
think overall, like you said, definitely some favoritism being played there, some nepotism, but at the same time, like you said, like if you have that power as a player to say, "Hey, this is the guy I want,"
yeah,
like, okay, cool. I
I
mean,
do.
he's done so much for the league. He's done so much, just for the state of Ohio, really, or at least Northeast Ohio. That like you can only respect LeBron, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like it is kind of a fun debate to have.
Yeah, you may not like him, but I found myself, a few years ago, like you cannot not respect the dude.
Right.
He's
Oh yeah.
definitely one of the greats, and he's pretty clean sheet, as far as
Oh,
off
no doubt.
the field stuff, staying with one woman and not doing anything crazy. So shout out to him for that.
Well,
Um,
that and everything you hear about Bronny is like he's a first class dude. Like,
yeah,
a lot of times, especially with a father who's been in the spotlight, who's been, so dedicated to his sport.
yeah,
Like,
all the money
you
in the world, right? I
exactly.
mean,
I mean,
he's
LeBron, well, obviously, whether it's LeBron or his mom, like they had to do some pretty good job of parenting too.
yeah,
Like he seems like a good dude, but
yeah.
we'll
I
see
would,
as
yeah.
far
I
as
mean,
his
that's
playing career.
it's almost a harder ask for them, right? Because you
Oh
got
yeah,
all the resources, all the access to all the bad shit. If you want to get into it, man, if you can get into it when you're
yes.
LeBron James' son. So yeah, shout out to them. So even though the NFL did not celebrate someone basically dying on the field in Damar Hamlin, looks like the NBA world made up for it and taken Bronny
Right.
James there. What else is on your mind, brother? Anything else before we kick this off?
Well, one over the last couple of days, I've recently learned that you are a massive soccer guy nowadays, playing
Yes,
some rec
yes.
soccer. What did we
Football,
do yesterday?
football.
What did we do yesterday?
No, I just, I was watching the Brazil Paraguay game, and I saw an opportunity. I found a villain. The Brazilian team, if you're not
Okay.
aware, they kind of like the big bad boys. They were playing Paraguay, close game. They were 0-0 the first match, and then this one they got this guy Vinny Jr. His first name's like Vinicius Jr. or something. I don't know. Guy's a stud, but guys talk shit like the best of them. He just was he was like going at the crowd. He's going at these players. He scored two beautiful goals. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, man, fuck this. I want to get against this team. So drop some shekels on Paraguay plus 3.5 live. It did cash 4-1
There you go.
final. We did cash, but yeah, I did feel like I was watching. I was getting a little too excited for something that's not actual football. So I was like, all right, we gotta reassess. These dog days of summer are really getting to me. So
Okay. Okay.
um,
Well, for one, as much as I am surprised that you have become a soccer guy, playing rec leagues on the weekends, I'm proud of you for getting your cardio in, doing some light rec league. Because I'll tell you, I jumped on the stairmaster for about 10 minutes earlier, and I wanted to pass out. Like
dude.
going back to our Bronny James, like I thought that was gonna be me after
Oh
10
my god.
minutes. Like I was dead, but
Dude,
I'm still kicking somehow. So
cardio. What would we always say, man? Fuck cardio. If you want to do that, just lift your weights faster. That
exactly. Yeah. Cut your less
unfortunately,
times down, you'll be fine.
yeah, I know. Unfortunately, the army does not abide by that, and they still run. But yes, if I was not in, I do not think I would run much at all. It
That's
is it is cardio by force, but hey, it is what it is. Last thing I'll say is, uh, we are recording this on a Saturday, so
fair.
starting our whiskey journey a little early today, and usually not a big deal, but I will say I went out there to pour myself a nice glass, and Stella gave me some eyes, like she was not really approving. Now, for those that don't know, Stella is my dog, not my wife. But I felt a little judged, bringing out the whiskey at 2 p.m.
It's 2 o'clock on a Saturday. Like,
What the fuck else am I supposed to do, right?
exactly.
It's a Saturday without college football.
If this was a Saturday in September, this would have started 4 or 5 hours ago at least. So
there it is.
I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
we're slowly building into this.
I love it. We're on a off-season progression program. This is our rehab to get us ready for tailgate season.
We're not jumping straight into the marathon. We're doing a mile at a time.
See, this is why we're friends.
Cardio at its finest. There we go.
Absolutely. All right, enough of all of that. Let's get into it, folks. We are breaking down the NFC East. Look, I left it off just for you. All right. None other than that, we are going to start this off by talking about the Washington Commandos. That is right. The Commanders there, the Redskins / football team / they don't know what their name is. That's what we're figuring out.
Hey,
so
you can't say that. You can't say that.
What can I say?
You said
did I say the R word?
You did.
Oh, no.
You did.
Oh no. Yes, the Washington Redskins, for what they were known for a long time, with no issues until somebody decided that it wasn't right. But yeah, I don't know, man. From what I've read and seen, it's tough to know the exact nature of it. But I'm from my understanding, a lot of the Native Americans actually liked it and did not have an issue with it. So we'll see. I hope they bring it back because it's got a lot of history. And although I do not like any team in the NFC East other than my Giants, seeing these name changes or stuff, the commies and the football team was just awful. So I hope they go back to the Redskins, but if not, something better than whatever trash that is. But let's talk about their major losses in addition. So getting to the free agency side of things, we had quarterback Sam Howell, starting quarterback last year. A bit of a surprise to me, giving up on him 1 year after you drafted him. Going to the Seahawks. Running back Antonio Gibson, writing was on the wall there, going to the Patriots. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel going to the Bills. Tight end Logan Thomas going to the 49ers. A couple offensive linemen who were pretty trash anyway. And cornerback Kendall Fuller, pretty good player there, going to Miami. They did, there's a lot of roster turnover with this team. Obviously, they were 4-13, so that's, probably a good thing. Not a very good team last year. Probably their biggest addition outside of the draft is running back Austin Eckler, at least in the fantasy space. A couple good linemen in Biotish and Allegretti. Allegretti, for those that don't know, who we'll talk about a little bit later here, coming off an injury. But, he did step in for Joe Thuney for the Kansas City Chiefs at guard there and played very well in the Super Bowl. He was a backup, but he could have been a starter on just about any other team there. A couple edge rushers in Fowler and Armstrong who should be starters. And some starters in the linebacking core, and Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu and Jeremy Chin. Louvu and Chin both coming from Carolina there. And then, of course, the quarterback of potentially the future for this team, quarterback Jaden Daniels here, who I think is gonna really determine the ceiling and floor for this team. They did bring in Zach Ertz as well, who's slotted at tight end 1, but we'll see how long he lasts on his old legs. All right, what are the big takeaways here?
Yeah, so to me, I mean, kind of like you mentioned, like it was somewhat surprising for them to move on from Sam Howell. I mean, is Sam Howell a top 10, top 15 quarterback in the NFL? Probably not, but like at the same time, like he's a young dude. He showed that he is a gunslinger. He could put up some stats.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was kind of interesting them switching off as bad as that defense is. Like, they probably could have gotten a pretty good chunk of draft picks for that number 2 overall pick and really tried to bolster that really very poor, worst defense in the league. But at the same time, like if you have the chance to get a Heisman winning quarterback, like pretty hard to pass that up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quarterback league, right?
Yep.
It is. I agree, though. I think the Howell thing was a little interesting. You just drafted him. At least keep him as a backup for a year. I can't exactly remember what they got for him. It's not like they got anything crazy for him. But I think the offense has potential to be a little bit fun. What are we thinking there?
Yeah, I mean, Austin Eckler, like you said, big addition there in the running back room. They still have Brian Robinson as well. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see how they end up splitting carries. Definitely a couple upgrades on the offensive line. Again,
Yep.
much needed
That should help. Mhm.
additions there. They did bring in a bunch of defensive guys in free agency. Some of them are getting up there in age, so
Yeah.
we'll see how much of a difference they make on the defensive side. But at the end of the day, like you said, they were what 4-13 last year. They
Yep.
have to do something.
Yep.
They do have some pretty good skill players on the offensive side of the ball. They got a pretty good wide receiver room.
Mhm.
Um, tight ends
Mm,
tight end's a question to me. I
yeah.
think I think the wide receiver room's still. I I I think it has shown glimpses that it can
Yeah.
it can
I mean,
produce. McLaurin's
I
still there. He's a stud. Jahan Dotson. We'll see how he ends up.
yeah.
Uh,
I
but
think McLaurin is definitely a dude, and then we'll talk about that a little later. He's definitely a guy that's shown consistently that he can be a wide receiver one. I think
yep,
outside of him, though, I do have some questions. But before we get into that, let's talk injuries. Let's talk major injuries that are going to be affecting this team heading into the 2024 season. We'll
yeah,
start with a couple linebackers in Jamin Davis, young player from Kentucky, I believe. Injured himself late in the year, December 14th, picked up a shoulder injury, required surgery. They didn't say exactly what, whether it's the AC joint or I'm based on the recovery timeline, likely something more AC as opposed to rotator cuff.
yep.
But he's got a 4 to 6 month recovery timeline, and he's got 8.5 months until week one. Any concerns there for Jamin Davis?
No, I really don't think I have any concerns for him. Like you said,
Hmm.
if it was an AC joint kind of a thing, this
Hmm.
usually is a bigger issue with quarterbacks that are constantly using that arm, constantly going above their head for certain things.
Yep.
Wide receivers
Yep.
sometimes, but most of the time, if you're not a quarterback, AC joints you can play through those.
Yeah.
Um, and like you said, timeline wise, he should be in the clear.
Yep, yep. So something similar injury to a la Anthony Richardson, but
Yeah,
a less concerning there because he's not going to have to make that throwing overhead motion repeatedly, hundreds of times. And then
yeah,
another guy, Frankie Louvu, just wanted to mention him. Minor ankle injury they picked up about a couple weeks ago in mini camp or OTAs, one of those around the 12th of June.
yep,
That's really, if they're calling it a minor ankle injury, it's probably a low ankle sprain, probably something like 2 to 3 weeks. He should be fine.
yep.
I would expect him back by training camp in late July there. He's got 3 months until the season, so no real concerns for him. Now,
Nope.
someone who, maybe a little bit more of a pause. We talked about Nick Allegretti coming from Kansas City,
Right.
offensive guard there, a guy who has shown starting capability, although being a backup there for in Kansas City just because they've had a really good offensive line. So he
Yep.
tore his UCL in his elbow, his ulnar collateral ligament in his elbow. He actually tore it on the Super Bowl. He
Yep.
tore it in the second quarter, I believe, and played the entire game with it torn. He got it. Got out there. The trainers basically told him, "Look, shit's torn. You're going to need surgery anyway." So they just kind of
Mhm.
try to wrap it up and just see if he could fight through it, and he did. He played actually pretty damn well. So that was shout out to him, man, because that is not fucking easy to
No
do.
doubt.
That's obviously a lot of adrenaline. It's a lot of, hey, I've worked my whole life to become a Super Bowl champion.
Yep.
But to come out there, not only to just have the,
Yeah.
passion to get out there, but to actually produce and not fall behind against a pretty good pass rush in the 49ers. Shout out to you, Nick Allegretti. Now, about a 6 to 9 month recovery timeline where they can actually be productive on the field. He's got about 7 months until the season starts. So we're getting a little close to that timeline. What are we thinking here?
No, I like you said, I think it might be a slight concern, maybe bring you a little bit of pause, but at the same time, like linemen, again, we're going back to quarterbacks. Like linemen aren't putting a ton of stress like on the inside part of their elbow where that UCL joint is. That's that Tommy John
Yep.
ligament that we usually hear about with pitchers and sometimes quarterbacks.
Yep.
They're not putting nearly as much torque on the inside part of their elbow as those throwing athletes. So I'm not too concerned. The Washington Commanders offensive line sucks, and he's going to be an improvement. I
Yeah.
would almost assume that he starts week one.
Yeah.
Um,
Put a brace on it
he
and see what he can
exactly,
do. Yeah.
exactly. He's probably going to have one of those almost like upper extremity knee type braces that you see
Yep.
offensive linemen wear
Yep.
all the time on their knees. But yeah, I think he should be perfectly fine going into the season.
Yeah, just a guy I want to keep an eye on going into training camp because he's so important to that team. We talked about he would be a massive upgrade at that position, but
Yep.
obviously he's got to be healthy, right? So if he has any type of setback or, hey, even with the brace, it's just, it can be stressed with playing offensive line, playing against really heavy dudes, trying to move them out of the way. Like Derek said, it's not something you'd expect, as much as a pitcher or somebody with a lot of throwing to be putting on it. But, still football is a dangerous game.
Yep.
So just something I want to keep an eye on, but you're right. I do at this point expect him to be out there week 1. All right, we are going to talk about some concerns that we had for this team. We talked about a little bit on the takeaways, but a couple things you brought up already. Worst defense in the NFL last year. Now they did obviously bring in a lot on the both defensive line, the linebacking core, and the safety position. I have some questions on their secondary with Forbes and St. Juste on the corner and Derek Forrest. I think Jeremy Chin is a good player, but linebackers I think are pretty strong, and so is their defensive line. So I think they'll definitely be an improved unit there, but we got to see how that back end. And the rookie starting on the left tackle, Brandon Coleman, rookie out of TCU, 3rd round pick this year. He is their starting left tackle. How do you feel about that?
It brings me a little bit of concern, just with especially with the pass rush in this division. The Cowboys have always, or at least have late, had a very good pass rush. It sounds like the Giants should have a much better pass ruch. The Eagles have had a solid pass rush. So it definitely brings me a little concern with the lack of experience, especially with a rookie quarterback. But we'll see. It'll be interesting. I think the defense is still probably the biggest concern to me, especially that secondary. Like you said, their defensive line has been pretty good, even after trading away Montez Sweat. They still have Daron Payne. They still have Jonathan Allen. There. So I think it all comes down to, will that secondary hold up, and really, will that offensive line hold up for Jaden Daniels? Because we know him down at LSU. He's a playmaker. He's
dynamic. Yeah.
He's absolutely dynamic. But the Washington Commanders, to me, are almost like a poor man's Chicago going into the season, right? Both Chicago and the Commanders obviously have rookie quarterbacks. They have some decent skill positions. Is their offensive line going to hold up? Obviously, Chicago probably has a better defense at this point than Washington, who gave up 30 or over 30 points a game.
They were that bad? Holy shit! Yeah.
Yeah. They I think it was like 30 point something. But anyways, the defense has to be a little bit better. Offensively, I think that Jaden Daniels is an upgrade from Sam Howell. But it all comes down to Jaden Daniels, just as it does with Caleb Williams in Chicago.
Yeah, no, I like that comparison, and I like the poor man's caveat to it too, because I do think the Bears are a bit further along than this Commanders team. But no, I like those similarities that you brought up there. The other thing for me that I talk about real quick is the pass catchers outside of McLaurin for me are a big question mark. You do have Eckler coming out of the backfield. That is a plus, as far as Antonio Gibson kind of played that role. I do think Eckler is better. How much better is still to be seen at his age. Jahan Dotson is someone who has, fantasy guys fall in love with him every year. He has all this potential, and, he's put up two seasons of about 500 yards for a starting wide receiver. Nothing to write home about. And then Luke McCaffrey is an interesting, slated at the wide receiver 3 slot. Obviously, in the blood potentially, but he's just not the same guy. I think he played at Rice University, if I'm not mistaken. He's just not the same caliber as his brother. We'll see. He definitely has some potential, but not anyone I'm projecting to really have such a breakout season. And then the tight end position, Zach Ertz. I faded Zach Ertz last year, old guy coming off an ACL. Obviously, he's not coming off a major injury, but I just think he's past his prime. But what I will say, just similarly like he opened the door for Trey McBride out there in Arizona. Ben Sinnott is a guy coming from Kansas State that, I do see him as more of a I would say maybe like a poor man's George Kittle, someone who likes to block and is going to smile at you as they pancake you into the ground, as opposed to somebody like Trey McBride, who's a little bit more on the receiving end. But that could be an interesting situation there, fantasy wise, as far as what we see down the stretch of, I'm not expecting Zach Ertz to be the starter, halfway through the season.
Yeah, no, I kind of like that comparison as well. I think overall, like you said, the wide receiver position, it'll be interesting. Terry McLaurin is a stud. Jahan Dotson has shown quite a few glimpses, but he hasn't been real steady. He hasn't been super consistent. But yeah, I think it all comes down to, personally, does that offensive line hold up? Because Jaden Daniels can get outside the pocket. He can make some plays with his legs. I think coming into the league, he is more polished than guys that are absolute studs like Lamar Jackson, like I don't know,
You talking like Kyler Murray, or what are you
maybe
talking?
Kyler Murray, maybe Josh
You,
Allen.
you just think oh, he's not as raw. He's not as
Right,
raw.
exactly.
Okay.
Right, exactly. I think he has more arm talent than some of those guys, but he can still make plays with his legs.
Yeah, he's an older dude. Yeah, fifth year senior, I believe, coming out, playing at Arizona State, and then 2 years.
Who knows? Maybe he can get a hold of the 49ers and get his old buddy Ayuk over to Washington.
We'll see. Now I'm seeing, again, as of Saturday, June 29th, now everything's pointing Ayuk to the 49ers, like you were claiming for on our last NFC West episode. So, yeah. We'll see what happens there, but that would change my opinion on this team. All right. Another quick question for you, fantasy wise. You got Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler right now. Eckler is listed on the depth chart as RB1, Brian Robinson RB2. I'm not really buying too much stock into that, but they're going around that RB30 range, both of them 30-ish, depending on different sites. Who would you take? Let's say they were same spot in the draft. They were both available. Who are you taking at kind of a very similar ADP? Brian Robinson or Austin Eckler?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what kind of league you're in. If it's a PPR league, I would probably lean Eckler because he is much better out of the backfield as a pass catcher. He's going to get some yards. He's going to get some receptions.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that he gets 2 yards or 22. Where Brian Robinson, he's a little bit more ground and pound. He's going to be most likely, historically, Austin Eckler isn't the can't stay healthy. So I think PPR leagues, I would probably lean Eckler just because of that pass catching ability.
Yeah.
More of a traditional, I'd probably go Brian Robinson.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, and literally Eckler, talks about part of the reasons that he left the Chargers there is because they were trying to run him too much. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was essentially something like he wasn't trying to be like an every down back and just get like all these touches. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and so that I would agree with that take. I do have Brian Robinson a little bit further ahead for me because I think he is going to be their true starter. I think he's going to get a lot of carries. I think if this team is smart, they lean into that, especially that new interior offensive line. That it should be improved. I think they should run the ball. You have a rookie quarterback. I think you help him out with a solid run game. So I would take Brian Robinson, but the PPR.
Now, here's a question for you. And this is more you just being an SEC guy. Can Jaden Daniels go under center and put Brian Robinson behind him? You know what I mean?
Good point. That's a good point. I mean, I can see it now. It's like a flashback just watching him run all over my Florida Gators last year. But yeah, I don't think he took a snap from under center. And now all these colleges, that's a good point. I mean, it's the NFL, baby. You better learn.
Yeah.
You better learn, right?
I would not be surprised if they put him in the pistol and do something like that. But
maybe, yeah.
It'll be an interesting.
That's a great point. That's a great point because we're talking about, a lot of people's main concern is his fragility as far as, he is a smaller guy. Now, I was talking about this on a guest spot I did, but recently, I think that it's hard to predict injury that way because you look at a guy like Tyler Lockett who takes care of himself and gets down. I think a lot of smaller frame guys. Yeah, I think they could look after that. There's nothing harm in that. Like, look, I don't want you to be running sideline to sideline, not going upfield and getting yards, but taking care of yourself, not trying to kill yourself for an extra 2 yards once you get the first down. I think Lockett does it well. I think more guys could learn to do that because you look at a guy like Anthony Richardson, who's a big ass dude. He is a big boy. He's not small framed, but he can't stay healthy. because
Right.
that's how he runs. He runs violent. He runs physical.
Which when Daniels was at LSU, he still ran that way, which is that concern. I
Mhm.
think, he if you look at some clips of him taking shots, like he's not running away from defenders, right?
That's
He's
true.
all for taking those hits. So yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see if he actually figures that out now that he's getting paid a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I like it. Yeah, that's a really good point that it's a valid concern, but I think it is a little bit hard to predict.
Yep, definitely.
All right, let's go ahead and get into our action, get into our best bets. Win total for them is sitting at 6.5, juice to the over there at -130. Again, they were 4-13 last year. What do you got for the people, brother? What is your best bet with this team?
Yeah, so I got a couple. One, I think Caleb Williams is getting a little bit too much hype up there in Chicago. Like I said, I do kind of see this Commanders team as a poor man's Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Jaden Daniels, because he's not
Okay.
um yes, he is a more polished passer, but he's going to pick up some yards on you with the legs. So I
Oh yeah.
actually like him to win the Rookie of the Year at plus 550.
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
like I said, I think they do have some pretty good skill guys, and
I don't
they're
hate
going to
that.
be behind in a lot of games. So he's gonna put up some stats.
He's gonna put up some stats, and if this team wins, gonna be because of him.
No
You
doubt.
can make the argument that if the Bears are successful, they play some pretty good defense. He's got way better weapons.
Yeah,
How much are we gonna ask of Caleb Williams? So I,
exactly.
I think I think he's gonna put up more stats because his defense is
And
worse.
the last time we saw both of them play, who was the better quarterback? Jaden Daniels.
Yeah,
I think going back to their college days, this last season, Jaden Daniels showed that he can put up some numbers against some big time competition. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. But yeah, I really do like Jaden Daniels. I do like these Commanders to be improved. But at the same time, I don't fully trust them to
yeah.
too much against their division foes, especially. So I do like them to go under 2.5 division wins at -105 as well. Um,
Okay.
I think that 6.5 is tricky. But I
Yeah.
do like them to at least sneak a couple, maybe one, maybe two in the division. But I don't think they're going to take out the Cowboys twice. I don't think they're going to take out the Eagles twice. The Giants, maybe.
You better watch your mouth. You better watch your damn mouth. All right. If there's one thing Daniel Jones know how to do, it's beat the fucking Commanders. But no, I like it, man. I like the Rookie of the Year pick and then the under 2.5 division wins. I thought that win total was tricky at 6.5. I kind of see them right around the 6 to 7 wins this year
Six,
too.
7. Yep.
Yeah. All right. For me, I only had one pick for these little Washington Commanders here. I'm gonna go with wide receiver Terry McLaurin over 900.5 receiving yards at -110 each way. Look, he's hit this every season he's been in the league. He played all 17 games the past 3 years. He's a guy who consistently stays on the field, and he's the best wide receiver option for a quarterback that potentially could be dynamic, right? I think I almost wish I could find some lines on this because I think he has a really solid year, putting up something like 12
Yep.
to 1,300 yards. And he's going to stay on the field enough to make this happen. But I think over 900.5. I'm not really sure why that is so low.
Yeah,
Again,
honestly, I think that comes back to, is Jaden Daniels going to stay healthy?
yeah.
And can you trust? I think they brought in Mariota behind him. No,
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's
Mariota.
Mariota.
Yeah, Mariota. That's a good call. Yeah, that might be baked into that, but still, I mean, he's played with some pretty shitty quarterbacks over
Oh
his
yeah,
time, and he's
yeah,
hit this number every year. So I just think he's the best option,
yep.
clearly by far on the entire offense, really. But they'll mix in the running game. I think he's your alpha on the outside. So give me McLaurin over 900.5 receiving yards again at the -110. All right, folks, that is enough talking about that Washington team, the nobodies up there in Washington. So we are going to move on. But before we do that, let me tell you about some of the things we got going over here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. That is right. You got to check out the Sports Gambling Podcast, the mothership, the flagship there, as they started their top 10 fantasy football preview series. The QBs and tight end episodes are already live. Look, folks, if you're listening to this, you already know this, but it is never too early to talk about the king of sports, and that is the National Football League, folks. And that's exactly what we're going to keep doing here. So we're going to move along, and we are going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, the scumbags from Philly. I told myself I wouldn't have too much bias going into this episode, but just seeing that fucking bullshit ass logo is just, gets my blood boiling. But I will calm down for you guys, and we're gonna get through this together. We're talking about the Eagles there. Pretty solid team last year at 11-6. Let's talk about their losses first. They lost a couple running backs.
They lost a lot.
They
in
did
the second
lose.
half of the season.
They did lose a lot. There you go. I love that. They lose, yeah. And hey, the last game, division game, last game of the season, who they played? None other than the New York Football Giants, who kicked their ass, made them bench their starters, hurt AJ Brown, which I never like to see a player get hurt, but if they're wearing that ugly green, then maybe. So,
I mean, the Kelly Greens is a good look, but
Kelly Green is a good look.
Whatever this green is, yeah.
Look,
I would agree.
I do not like Eagle fans, but I can appreciate their passion for the sport. So, I will give them that. They are a fun group. All right, let's get in these losses. I will say the biggest loss for me is running back Boston Scott. Thank the Lord he is not going to be on the Eagles to score on my Giants and just turn into freaking Bo Jackson every time he played us.
I'm glad you brought that up, because if not, I was going to.
Okay, yeah, all right, we can move on now. DeAndre Swift, also Julio Jones, who kind of was a little bit of a dud for them. But really, here's where we start making the impact for me. Jason Kelce, one of the few Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia sports players that I can absolutely have just so much respect for, not only as a player, but as a person. He just did everything the right way. First ballot Hall of Famer, no question for me. I think he was one of the best players the league has had in general.
And one of the best podcasters. I mean,
that's true. Fellow podcaster. Shout out to, So
for sure.
No, Jason Kelce. Yeah, he's gone. Also Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick, Shaq Leonard, Kevin Byard. And then talking about the additions, they brought in a good amount of people here. So you got Saquon Barkley.
Ooh, that's a stud.
We'll get to. You know what? Fuck it. We'll do it right now. You know what? Yeah, Saquon Barkley, who I know we like to say, when someone plays for your organization, you wish them well, and you say, oh, well, I hope, whatever, I'll be a fan. Fuck that. I am not being a fan of Benedict Barkley, all right? That man I'm no fan of his. He wanted to say all this shit about being a Giant for life and all this, yada, yada, yada. And then not only does he go to the fucking Philadelphia Eagles, but he also starts to gloat around like it. Like he's just like, oh, well, this was always meant to be. And, I don't even have to move and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I'm absolutely a salty Giants fan. I will not be very rooting for Saquon Barkley, if you could not tell.
Hey, man. They lost Boston Scott, though. He was your killer. He was the Giant killer. He was, taking what? He scored in how many games straight?
All right. All right. Moving on. They brought in Paris Campbell as well. Defensive end Bryce Huff, who is a solid player from the Jets. Linebacker Devin White, whose best years might be in his past from the Bucks. Safety CJ Gardner Johnson, a fellow Gator who actually played there when I went there. He is a pretty good player. He runs his mouth like a CJ is a Philadelphia Eagles fan. You know what I'm saying? Like he's someone if he's on your team, you're like, yeah, fuck yeah. But if he's not, bro, this guy's fucking annoying, man. Like these Philadelphia Eagles fans. So I think he'll fit in fine. And then really they sold out on cornerback, and I hated watching the draft because they really got two solid players.
Much needed. Yep.
Yeah, two solid prospects in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. So that wraps up their kind of offseason. Pretty eventful offseason. So what are your takeaways from it?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest loss for the Eagles is by far Boston Scott, because he's a touchdown machine against your Giants. But like you said, I mean, losing Jason Kelce up front, losing Fletcher Cox up front on the defense, like having those two retire they're major blows to both sides of the interior of those lines, and it'll be interesting to see if the Philly what all are we calling this? The Philly, the tush push, the brotherly shove, the whatever the word ending up calling this.
Lots of bullshit. That's not gonna work.
Yeah, we'll see if that continues to be as successful
Yeah.
for the Eagles. Obviously, you have a pretty good quarterback there as well with some massive legs, but it'll be interesting to see if that continues to be as successful for the Eagles because nobody else has been able to figure it out j- as
Yeah.
well as just Kelsey had.
No,
Um,
that is gonna be an interesting point that I will say, even as a Giants fan, I don't know his name, but the offensive line coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, he's probably one of the best assistant coaches that the league has. Like, he just, like, taking Jordan Mailata, a guy who never played football and played rugby, and turning him into a solid tackle there, left
yep.
tackle. Like, he is a really good coach. So we're gonna see, how much was it Jason Kelsey figuring out the angles and making that touch put work, or was it really the coaching? So that push is going to come to shove this year, so we will see there. But what other stuff? What do you think about this defense?
Yeah, defensively, I mean their secondary was definitely the weak part of their defense last year, and they went heavy in the draft with Kenyon Mitchell and Cooper John. So I think the defense is going to be young. They're going to need to get tested over the first few weeks. But at the same time, like, they finished 1-6 last year. Like, they had to do something, especially on that defensive side of the ball. Their offense, um, you know, they have studs everywhere.
Yeah.
They obviously they lost a couple, but they brought in a couple guys that should be able to be serviceable and fill in pretty nicely.
Yeah, no, if we're just looking at this defense, you said it, but like, you got Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, first or second and third year guys there. Bryce Huff, also a younger player, but Nakobe Dean's a young guy. Nolan Smith is a young guy. Quinyon Mitchell is a young guy. Reed Blankenship. Like, they got this. That's just their starting defense, not even mentioning, Dijon and some other guys like that. But it is going to be interesting because that is a new era in Philadelphia. We talked about the offensive line as well, with Cam Jurgens and Tyler Steen stepping in. Dickerson's a young guy as well, but this is definitely the new age for this Philadelphia Eagles. So for my sake, let's hope they're not nearly as good as the old players there. All right, let's talk about some of these injuries. So one of the guys we just mentioned, Nakobe Dean, he's probably the guy with the biggest questions on his team coming in. He's just had trouble staying on the field. He showed some promise last year. He actually looked like one of their better linebackers, but he picked up a Liz Frank injury. For those that do not know, Liz Frank injury is an injury in your foot. It is either to the bone or the ligament in the middle section of your foot there, between the kind of the second and third foot or toe region. So when that happens, it requires surgery. The foot becomes unstable, so you have to have surgery to repair it. It's about an 8 to 10 month recovery timeline till you really can get back on the field and start looking like yourself. Probably even longer for that, but he's got 9.5 months until from the injury to when he gets back on the field. How much concern do you have for Nakobe Dean heading into this 2024 season?
Yeah, honestly, I don't have a ton of concern. I think the biggest thing is he going to be as explosive as before his injury? He was one of those just freak athletes,
Yeah,
coming
he
into the
flies
league.
around, man.
He can absolutely fly to the ball. A lot of times when we have one of these longer recovery, lower extremity injuries, like, some of that explosiveness, some of that speed takes a little bit to come back. So, overall, I think he'll be ready towards the
Yeah.
start of the season, if not week 1. But at the same time, like, we've seen countless numbers or countless times that linebackers just, it takes them a while to get back in the swing of things. So,
Yeah. You do not get better at playing football by not playing football,
yeah.
especially as a young player. So just the one guy I really have some questions with going in, but again, he does have a good shot to be ready to go by the start of the season. Two other guys I have a lot less concern about. Really quick, we'll mention AJ Brown. He did not play in that game where they lost and their season tragically ended, with all of the sarcasm in the world in that tragic statement. Ended by the hands of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which we were on the Buccaneers. Thank you for that, Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
And James Bradbury also picked up a minor hip abductor injury. That's just one of the muscles on the outside of your, it's a kind of a group of muscles on the outside of your hip. They're talking about transitioning him from cornerback to safety because they brought in all this young youth at the cornerback position. Another trader who was playing with my Giants and went over to the dark side there. But not a lot of concern with either of these guys. They both should be pretty good to go. Definitely AJ Brown. We'll just kind of want to monitor Bradbury, make sure it doesn't kind of linger. All right, let's talk about some of our concerns. I will kick this off. My biggest concern is just the offensive line play. I just think it's a lot of not just the offensive line, the line play in general, both sides of the ball there for this team. I just think that whenever you lose someone like Kelsey, one of the best players that the league has seen in a number of years, I think that's tough. Same as a guy like Fletcher Cox. I think Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, and Dickinson have a lot to prove this year. Now, I'm not saying that they can't reach that potential, but I don't think we should just slate them to be, as good as the guys whose place they left. I think they still have some things to prove. And same thing with Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, and Milton Williams. These are young guys with a lot of potential, especially look like how Carter looked. But I mean, for a while, Jalen Davis, they were talking about, can he stay on the field? Like how many plays can he actually play? So now he's going to be at an increased role. They do not have the depth that they once had, right? You still have Josh Sweat slotted in to be a rotational guy, but behind him, their backups look like Moro Ojomo, Marlon Tiapolotu, and Thomas Booker. So yeah, that is not Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick, Derek, is it Brooks? Not Brooks. What's his name? Brandon Graham, excuse me. Derek Brooks is the old Tampa Bay Buccaneers guy. But yeah, so it's just not the same. So I think that there's potential for some fall off. Now, as much as I hate this team, you cannot argue that their offensive skill group is very talented.
Yeah, no, I would tend to disagree to a certain extent on the offensive line because Coach Stoutland, the Eagles offensive line coach.
Is that his name? Stalin?
Stoutland.
Nah, he's Stalin.
As in a beer land. But anyways, I think he's gonna get Jurgens mixed in with those guys. I think Steen will be okay. But you're gonna have a hard time finding three guys like Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, and Jordan Mailata on the same offensive line. Those three are absolute studs at tackle and guard.
Yep.
They still have Jalen Hurts back there running the show. It'll be interesting to see if they run him as much as they had. When they do, that's when they really start getting things to roll. But, he has had some injury concerns over the last year or two. He's been beat up a little bit. And when they do, or when he does, they tend to, take a step back on his legs. So It'll be interesting to that standpoint. I completely agree on the defensive line. Definitely don't have the depth that they once had, especially on the interior. Like you said, Jordan Davis, massive human being.
Yeah.
Will he be in football shape with this accelerated role?
The thing is, how many plays can he stay on the field?
Exactly. I mean, Jalen Carter, absolute beast as well, but they don't have the depth. They just don't. So, I think on the back end, I think they loaded up obviously, and they probably will be improved. But will Devin White? What Devin White are we going to get? Is Nakobe Dean going to be healthy?
Yeah, the linebackers are a big question, like they've always been. They definitely have more young talent than usual, but I don't think Devin White is.
They have talent, they have speed, they have size all over the place, but are they all going to be able to click and put it all together?
Yep, and rookie corners tend to struggle, even though I do like both those players, DeJohn and Mitchell. All right, let's move on to some best bets. Let's get some action for this team. So 11-6 last year.
Shoot them off first.
Yeah. Win total 10.5, a little bit juicy over at -120. So I'm going to immediately start with that win total. I'm going to go under 10.5 wins here. I think that when you look at this team last year, I just think that
I think that's one of these. That's a hard play.
If you think that's a hard play, just wait for the next one. But yeah, so I just do not see this team being a better team than last year. Even with their struggles down the stretch, I talked about it. It's the offensive defensive line. I do not think that they replace guys like Hassan Reddick, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey. I think they got some questions for the first time in a long time. And I think that a lot of people are just slating them in and just thinking that, it's Philly, with the coach, they'll just figure it out. But I have my concerns. So, going to that, and by that, all that bad karma that Saquon Barkley is going to bring to that team is going to be good. I know the NFL said there was no tampering. Bull fucking shit. All right. What do we have those investigations for? It's clear as day. Whatever. My next bet is for the Philadelphia Eagles to miss the playoffs and for the city to burn a little bit there if that happens. But yeah, I think that they're obviously I'm not predicting them to have a good year. You get a plus 180 on that. So the under 10.5 is plus 100. Missed playoffs is plus 180. I think they're somewhere around 8-9, even maybe 9-8. I just don't think that they make the playoffs, obviously, for a lot of the reasons I just said. And then finally, Mr. Benedict Barkley to go under 6.5 rushing touchdowns. I talked about the line play in front of him, but Jalen Hurts is just a touchdown machine or a touchdown merchant, depending on who you have in fantasy. Because, I mean, the guy had 15 rushing touchdowns last year. DeAndre Swift, their leading running back, only had 5. Saquon Barkley himself has put up a couple of years of 6 and 6, even when he's been healthy. Obviously, when he had one of his good years, he did have over that. But yeah, I just think that Jalen Hurts is still the goal line back. I think they're going to still try the tush push. I think they're going to run a lot of Jalen Hurts in the red zone. I just don't think he's going to get the volume in the red zone is really what it comes down to. I think he's a pretty good threat out of the backfield as well as a receiving threat. I think, having some design things where, whether you want to call it the Tebow or you kind of fake a Jalen Hurts run and kind of swing him out of the backfield or something like that. But yeah, I'm going with Saquon Barkley under 6.5 rushing touchdowns. All right, let's hear it.
So I completely disagree with that last bet that you threw out there. And if both of these hit, it'll be a miracle because I am taking Saquon Barkley to have at least 3 touchdowns against your New York Football Giants.
Oh my God!
And here's why.
Even a bet? Are you making these on? Where the fuck is this?
Nope, that is at plus 225 off of DraftKings. But this is why. Okay. I do not think the tush push is going to be the same as it once was with Jason Kelce. I just don't think, across the NFL, the Eagles are by far or have been by far the best team. They're really the only ones that have truly been able to figure that out.
Yep.
As consistently as they have.
Yep.
I think that's mostly a Kelce thing. He's not going to be there. Jalen Hurts, definitely a threat running the ball. Like you said, he had 15 touchdowns last year. I just don't think they're going to give him that much volume.
The injury concern is a valid.
They have a huge step up in terms of running back talent, and they lost the giant killer in Boston Scott. So who's going to be stepping in there for those goal line carries other than Saquon Barkley? You bring this guy in, you pay him to produce. So I think Saquon gets at least 3 revenge touchdowns
Are these rushing touchdowns? Or these are just any touchdowns?
3 touchdowns.
All right.
He has an improved offensive line, no Boston Scott, and you have that threat of Jalen Hurts. So not all eyes, not 22 eyes are going to be on Saquon Barkley this year. In the past.
Here's how we play that out. Game plan that. So week 17. All right, I gotta look at the schedule. I don't even know when they play each other. I know they played each other week 17 last year. Hold on, let me look here. Let me look at the schedule, see when they play. They usually play late in the year. Yep, week 17 again. All right, or week 18, excuse me, because of the little bye week. So week 18, Giants have locked up the division, number 1 seed. So we're resting our starters. So the Eagles at 8-8. They're trying to figure out how they can get into the playoffs. They'll sadly be left out. But yeah, they play all their starters. Saquon gets 3 touchdowns in a meaningless game. They miss the playoffs, and we're all happy. So all right, I can see that.
Honestly, if that's how it plays out, I cash. I don't think that's going to be how it plays out. But at the end of the day, my account has improved, or my account starts looking better. So
yeah, we can dream. What is that it for the Eagles? You got something else?
That's it. That's all I have for the Eagles. I just I like Saquon Barkley against your Giants. I think for a number of reasons, he's just going to have many opportunities.
Yeah, whatever. All right. But we are halfway through, folks. We're gonna pick up the pace a little bit here, but we're gonna talk about underdog fantasy. That is right, folks. Head on over to Underdog Fantasy. Look, their pick 8 is now live. You used to be able to do 5 picks, but now you can pick up to 8, like up to 325x your original amount. That is right. You heard me correctly. You can put in $1 and you can win $325 over on Underdog Fantasy. They have some great deals. You know what the best deal is that if you use free money, baby. Look, it's as simple as this, folks. Sign up for Underdog Fantasy, use promo code SGPN Doc, put in $250, boom, instantly. Your account is at $500. You get a free $250. Also, one of the other reasons why I love Underdog Fantasy is they do a lot of cool stuff. We're going to talk about some of them, right? So obviously, Saturday, June 29th, for those in the combat sports world, UFC 303, even without McGregor, it's a huge card, right? They are giving you essentially a free square. Alex Pereira to have over half a strike. That's going to happen in the first 10 seconds of this match here. So, they're giving you a free square. They do these all the time. They basically try to help you win money. Look, we're helping you win money with promo code SGPN Doc. They're helping you win money with these specials. And we're going to talk about, they also have this NFL season, which looks at these season-long projections where you can say higher or lower. And Derek's got a take on a Cowboys quarterback. We're talking about the Cowboys next. So what do you got on Mr. Dak Prescott?
Yeah, I absolutely love the Dak Prescott Cowboys passing game this year. So I think he easily goes over this 42-25 mark that Underdog has out.
Goes
Now,
higher.
Well, yes, higher than 42-25. Yeah, now, and if we pair this with, say, a Saquon Barkley over 6.5 touchdowns or something like that.
You mean lower than 6.5 touchdowns?
Higher. I don't know. Anyways.
Yes. All right. I like the Dak Prescott angle as much as I don't like the Cowgirls, who we're going to talk about in a second. We'll talk about this, but yeah, their running back situation is you literally got rid of Zeke and now he's your RB1 2 years later. So yeah, I do think that they're going to be throwing a lot, and Dak, he's shown that he can throw the ball pretty darn well there. So I do not hate that play at all. The Dak Prescott higher than 4,225 and a half passing yards on the season. Again, that was much more Derek play than me because I'm never taking the Cowboys to do anything successful. All right. We are also want to talk to you about Circa. That is right, folks. Circa Sports is back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away 16 million in guaranteed prizes. Of course, Circa contests have no rake. Circa Millions, you pick 5 teams against the spread each week and compete for 6 million. Or you can go the survival route and try to survive the NFL gauntlet to claim your stake for $10 million. You can sign up in person at Circa Sportsbooks between now and September 7th and use proxy. So if you do not live in Nevada or near Las Vegas, you can sign up You have to sign up in person, but you can use a proxy to place your bets for you each week. We even have a deal at footballcontestproxy.com. You can save $50 with promo code SGP. Look, if you don't have everybody wants to go to Vegas, sometimes you just need an excuse. So what better time than to head out there for the ultimate sign-up weekend where you can hang out with Sean and Ryan, the host of the flagship sports gambling podcast, and they have open bar events and the greatest sports book in the world, August 22nd through the 24th. Derek and I can both attest. We've spent quite a night and quite a few nights and quite a few pennies at the Circa Sportsbook there just last year for the playoffs. So it is a fun time. Sportsbook's awesome, and if you want to check out the pool and kind of watch the playoff game with the ginormous TVs and a bunch of people getting drunk, outside blackjack tables is a nice touch too. So we are definitely Circa supporters there. All right, we're talking about none other than the Dallas Cowgirls. And before you tell me, damn, their emblem looks kind of fucked up. Yeah, that's on purpose. All right, because that's how I feel about them. They are not worth the time for me to edit that to a nice fashion. I will say though, they do have one redeeming quality. Any guesses on what that is?
Well, I would the only other thing besides the DGen Docs logo is a bunch of fine looking women over there in the corner.
They do. I will say, as someone who does like American traditions, there is a proud American. Yeah,
Hey,
that's a tradition I don't hate. The
hey, can
cowgirl
I thank
cow.
Netflix for bringing back the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders show? By the way, evidently that was shut down a couple years back, and I
Mm,
guess Netflix is bringing it back. So just
hey,
saying,
and that is enough on that.
every team has to have at least one good quality.
Look, as a soon to be groomsman, I'm gonna take the proper route, and we're gonna move on from this conversation before either of our wives hear any of this. So we're gonna talk about the free agency here, talk about some of the changes, talk about some of the losses for your Dallas Cowboys. As you can see, it is pretty big list here. Your Cowboys, who were 12-5 last year, they were the NFC East champions. They did lose Tony Pollard, starting running back, to the Titans. Just didn't really mesh with that and his style of running. He was great as a change of pace guy, but he just couldn't really take that RB1 load. Michael Gallup, wide receiver 3 there for them. Tyson Smith, Tyler Biotish, who went to the Commandos in division, which is always kind of funny.
Mhm.
Are
Dante Fowler, Dorrance Armstrong also going to the Commanders.
also going
Vander
to
Esch
yeah.
retiring, which was kind of a
Yeah, that's
surprise.
a sad story, man. Yeah, with his neck injuries
Yeah,
just kind of consistently popping up. It's neck
yeah,
surgery and back surgery. Low back and cervical and lumbar spine
yep,
surgery is tough. Like, it's the, as a medical provider, it's the last thing you want to push. I was just talking to one of my PAs, physician assistants, at work the other day, and it's tough. The outcomes just are tough to do. Now, sometimes when you start to have some neurological things, you don't have a choice. But just shout, it's tough that his career had to end this way, but he's probably
right,
making the best decision for his quality of life.
definitely.
All right. So talking about the additions, they brought back Mr.
Not much.
Ezekiel Elliott. Yeah, after letting him go and kicking him out a couple years ago. They also got Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle, and Eric Kendricks, and then Royce Freeman to kind of add some depth there. What are your takeaways from a lot of losses and not a lot of gains for this Cowboys team?
Yeah, I mean, from all intents and purposes, the Dallas Cowboys have been kind of slowly building, I guess you could say. I mean, they've been a solid team over the last 2 or 3 years, but
Yep.
evidently Jerry Jones considers this going all in for this upcoming season. I don't know what he's on or smoking or drinking or what, but I want some. Um, but yeah, I think in general, like you said, I think they lost a couple key pieces on that offensive line. Obviously, they bring in the rookie Tyler Guyton, who's slotted to start for them.
Okay.
Uh, they lose some defensive line depth. So we'll
Yeah.
see if their pass rush is as good as it usually is, since they're not able to rotate through. They
Yeah.
bring in Eric Hendricks somewhat to replace Vander Esch, and then you lose a veteran stud corner in Stephon Gilmore. So yeah, I don't know. I can't necessarily see where the Dallas Cowboys improved
Yeah,
this
no,
offseason.
that's fair. I mean, looking at this roster, it is very, I think Zeke for Pollard, even though Pollard wasn't super great last year. I mean, I don't see that as an upgrade.
Yep.
Gallup for their young player and Jalen Tolbert, I don't see that as a major upgrade. I think Jake Ferguson has the potential to be a little better his second year.
Yep.
Offensive
Definitely.
line, they've just dealt with a lot of injuries, but they definitely got a lot of new faces. I mean, for a long time, they were one of the premier offensive lines in the league. And
Yeah.
really, Zach Martin is the last, and Tyler Smith and Steele are some guys who've been around for a while. But, it's kind of Zach Martin's kind of the last of that older group of players, similar to the Eagles situation.
Yep.
So we will see how that plays out for them. Let's take a quick look at their injury situation. So guys who have some concern across the board. So we'll start with Trayvon Diggs, really, cousin to Stephon Diggs. The cousins are brothers.
Brothers.
Brother.
Brothers. Brothers.
Brother to Stephon Diggs, excuse me.
Both
Coming
of
off,
them, both of them down in Texas now.
they are both in Texas. Yeah, one just went a hop skip away over there in
Right.
Houston. So he injured himself early in the season, September 23rd, ACL tear, about a 10 to 12 month recovery timeline. He's got 11 months, so he's right kind of smack dab in the middle there. So what are you thinking about his chances being ready for week 1?
I honestly, I think he's got to be. I don't think they have much in terms of secondary depth. You know, you obviously you have Deron Bland opposite of him, but you lose
Yeah.
Stephon Gilmore, who filled in fairly well for
Yeah, they got
Leonard
Nishan
last
Wright
year. But
and Gary
yeah,
on Conley, shout out to the UFL. He was
yeah,
just playing with the Defenders, DC Defenders. They signed him one of the they have a handful of signings, but yeah, he's already number kind of cornerback 2 on the depth chart. So we'll see.
right, right. So I mean, I think, like I said, I think he has to be. It'll be kind of right there in that zone of return to play. So I
Yeah.
think it'll be one of those things that, you know, he'll probably miss a lot of the preseason stuff just
Yeah.
to kind of get back rolling. And who
Oh
knows
yeah.
how, if he'll be up to speed those first 2 or 3 weeks. But he was kind of a ball hawking. He takes a lot of risks anyways at the cornerback position.
Both of them
So
do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, I think um, overall, I hope he's good for the
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys' sake. I know you don't, but anyways.
Yeah, no, I think 11 months right around is that timeline where I think they do have a good shot to be ready for week 1. So in that regard, I think I think he's got a chance to be ready, but I think he will be a little rusty coming out. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to get a lot of preseason work, so we'll see there. But I do expect after the first couple of weeks to him to start being able to produce. But it is tough coming off an ACL tear. There's not a easy injury. Anterior cruciate ligament, major stabilizing ligament of the knee. It does affect your running backs, wide receivers a little bit more, but he has to keep up with those guys. So,
Yep.
I'm not really calling for him to have an all-pro year or anything like that. But like you said, even him at 80% is going to be an upgrade from what they have behind him. So
Right.
we'll see how that's going to play out for them. Other guys, so young players, second-year players, both Michigan Wolverines. Mozzie Smith, defensive tackle, who they took last year early in the draft, who really struggled, could not stay on the field, and he is not starting off this 2024 campaign on a good note. He had a shoulder surgery on March 20th. It's about a 4 to 6 month recovery timeline. He's got about 5.5 months until the start of the season. Look, it's not even just the injury itself. It's a guy who struggled to stay on the field last year. He's coming in with all these issues. They're expecting an increased role for him to be a good depth piece, for him to potentially become a starter for this defensive line, and he can't be out there. So, you're talking about a young guy who has not had a lot of time on the field, who is now not going to be on the field anymore, at least through this offseason, through valuable reps because of this injury. So I do see some concern here. And the other guy is tight end Luke Schoonmaker. He also had a very similar shoulder surgery to Mozzie Smith, and he picked up a hamstring strain. He was ready to return by OTAs, but he picked up a grade 2 hamstring strain, which is only about a 1 to 2 month recovery timeline. He's got 3.5 months, but again, another guy who has struggled to stay healthy. So, what are you thinking for both these guys? Is this something that you think they can bounce back from, or are you kind of concerned?
I'm not terribly concerned. I mean, I know they brought in Mozzie Smith to put alongside the big O Odigizua, but at the same time, like they need defensive line depth. They lost a couple dudes in free agency. I think he's probably going to be on some sort of a snap count to begin the season. Like you said, they're pushing for him to be that starter, but will he be there? Probably not. He hasn't really been on the field or a ton over the last couple of years. So we'll see.
No, yeah, I mean, you look at we talked about it with the Eagles, but the same thing with the Cowboys. Like, what made them so dangerous was they had this rotation of guys who could just come in, and it's almost like a hockey line change. You'd come in with these studs, and you bring in a really good group of twos who are fresh going against this offensive line that's been out there all game. But they just don't have that. They're secondary guys, Sam Williams, Mozzie Smith.
No longer have those guys that can step in for a DeMarcus Lawrence or Micah Parsons to just give them a little bit of a breather. So, I like you said, Yep, they're not going to have that depth. They're not going to have that second line.
Yeah, and I think the Schoonmaker injury concerns just boost up Jake Ferguson's stock as tight end 1. Definitely. So what concerns do you have for this team? What's your biggest concern for the Dallas Cowboys in the 2024 season?
I mean, it still goes back to the running game. Like you obviously lose Zeke a year ago. I think he was only gone a year.
Yeah, I think it was just a year.
I think it was a year. And when him and Pollard were kind of changing pace, if you will, like they had a pretty good running game, but at the same
Yeah.
time, like, Tony Pollard wasn't able to step in there as their RB1 last year and produce as much as he was able to with Zeke there. You lose him to Tennessee. Rico Dowdle, does he excite anybody? He doesn't excite me.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's going to be Dak to CD and Dak to Jake Ferguson and Dak to whoever else.
Or someone
Yeah,
else. Yeah.
exactly. Because their running game, Zeke's getting up there. Rico
Yeah.
Dowdle is okay. He's a change of pace, if you will, but he doesn't excite me. He hasn't shown that he can be that true change.
Yeah. He's not shown anything special, right? He's shown that he can run behind a good offensive line when they create holes, but what does that really
But you
tell me?
lose a couple solid offensive linemen. So yeah, I mean, I think in Dak we trust if we're Dallas Cowboys fans.
It's a scary place to be, my friend. That's a scary place to be. But no, I agree with you. I agree with your analysis. They're going to live and die by this passing game looking into this 2024 season. So coming off a 12-5 season, their win total is 10.5 with the over at plus 150. So why don't you tell us about your best bet for the Dallas Cowboys in this 2024 season?
Yep. So I got a few of them here. So like I said, I really like Dak in that passing game for the Dallas Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
The last 3 seasons that Dak has been healthy, he's gone over that number that we put up a little bit earlier through Underdog. So I really like Dak to have the most passing yards at plus 650.
He won this last year?
I don't know if he had the most last year or not, to be honest with you.
Was it him or it might have been Tua?
It may have been Tua.
I'll look that up while you're going.
Yeah, but anyways, like their running game's going to be the same, if not maybe a little bit of a step down. And I do think the Dallas Cowboys are going to have a pretty good team. Do they take a little bit of a step back? Maybe, but their offense still has weapons. Their offensive line should still be pretty good. I really think that Dak lights it up. And with that being said, besides Brandon Cooks and Jake Ferguson, like nobody really scares me like CD Lamb does. CD Lamb is an absolute beast at wide receiver. You can put him anywhere on the field. He runs every single route. Yeah. I really like him to win Offensive Player of the Year. And that is 900 plus 900 because I think Dak and him are just gonna put up stats.
I mean, I guess I can't really.
That's a stat award. If they have a decent year like they did last year, if they go 11-6, if they go 12-5, it's gonna be because of those 2 dudes.
Yeah,
and they basically did it last year. So yeah, I really like those 2. But the one that I'm most surprised or most excited,
oh god,
going up, is for the Dallas Cowboys to go 2-0 against the New York Football Giants, and that's plus money at plus 105.
This may be the last episode of the DGen Docs, folks.
Sebastian, can you tell me the last time the Giants beat the Dallas Cowboys?
Oh god, trying to give an honest answer. Oh god, it's been years, man. Fuck. 2017, 18.
It's not been quite that long.
Thank God. Okay, good.
It was 2020.
2020.
And they beat an Andy Dalton led Dallas Cowboys.
Oh shit! Yeah, that was when Dak had his nasty leg injury.
Yep.
Yeah, he got hurt against the Cowboys, and they won that game. We hurt.
Yep.
Well, I don't want to say we hurt him, but he got hurt playing the Giants, and they still won that game, and then we beat them the next. Yeah.
Can we bring up that they beat the Giants 89-17 in 2 games last year?
All right, let's relax. It's not. That's not. All right. Yeah. I see where you're going.
At plus money.
I see. What was the number on that?
Plus 105.
Yeah, I won't be taking it, but that's good to
know against the Giants.
Good to know. All right. Look, we're going back to the Dak and CD stuff. It's hard to fault you on the logic there. They were both like about 100 yards off of Tua and Tyreek. And in the Miami situation, you have Jalen Waddle there. You have a couple other guys that could take away some of those numbers. Like you said, who's going to take away those numbers for Dallas? I am concerned that if they can't run the ball, it becomes predictable. But like you said, they're gonna
I
have
don't
to
think it
throw the ball.
matters. They did it last year. They couldn't run the ball last year, so
That's a good point. Yeah, no, I can't fault you on those, even at the shorter odds there for those awards. The other one, we're just going to move on completely from. Going to my best bet on the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to talk about another guy who I do think can contribute, and that's Jake Ferguson, over 675 and a half receiving yards. If I'm not mistaken, he hit this pretty easily. Yeah, he was the number 2 receiver last year with over 670 yards receiving. I think he's going to be improved. I think they're going to need to rely on him. Similar, we've been talking about, right? You bring in an older and, likely less out of shape Ezekiel Elliott to now he's supposed to be a run game with some moving pieces up front on the offensive line. They're going to have to rely on the air game a lot this year. So give me Jake Ferguson over 675 and a half receiving yards, minus 110 each way there. Yeah, I like Ferguson there for a lot of the reasons you said, talking about that passing game. Win total stuff, I think it's a little tough to touch because they could be a worse team record-wise and have a better fantasy season or put up some solid numbers through the air.
Definitely.
All right. Let's bump on over to the last team, the best team in the division. But before we do that, folks, let me tell you about another one of our great sponsors here. And that is something that my friend Derek Bennett's White Ass does not have. And that is Rhythm. We are talking about Rhythm. That is right, folks. If you are betting on player props, you didn't like that one? I thought that was pretty good.
Well, I do not have Rhythm, but I like Rhythm.
There you go. If you're betting on player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm is the go-to sports betting tool that transforms complex data into actionable insights, empowering sports bettors with smarter, data-driven decisions. Unlike other platforms, Rhythm combines advanced predictive analytics with an intuitive user experience, making betting both easy and enjoyable. Rhythm's predictive models were born from the brains of MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, data scientists and quants with over 3 years of data that help drive you to better AI-backed betting discussions. Rhythms have been red hot in their projections for the WNBA and the golf. Claim your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Look, folks, having a doctorate in the healthcare field, I've read a lot of medical jargon. I feel smarter reading that ad read. Right there, that is some big words thrown in there.
I was gonna say, from a professor, I think we should give them an honorary doctorate for helping us degens out with our degeneracy in our batting.
MIT approved, man. So a lot of people way smarter than us helping you out there over at Rhythm. So make sure you guys check them out, and of course use that promo code to get you a free 7-day trial. All right, folks, what everybody's been waiting for. The New York Football Giants. That is right. Look, I hope you're as jacked up as I am. And if you're not, I really don't give a shit because I am. Look, NFL season is right around the corner, and we are talking about none other than the New York Football Giants. And look, I'm calling for them to have a much better season than last year. They're coming off a 6-11 season after going to the playoffs, getting a road playoff victory. Man, I was so excited coming off that 22 season. Obviously, 2023 did not pan out the same. But let's talk about what they did in free agency. So starting off with, they unloaded some dead weight in the backfield there with Benedict Barkley. They got rid of Sterling Shepard. He's on the Bucs now. Darren Waller has decided that he wants to wrap his way into irrelevancy. So we will take that money back and guaranteed. So at least we get something there. Ben Bredesen, who I thought was always a pretty good, decent player. He's on the Bucs. Adoree Jackson, I believe is he been picked up? I think he's still a free agent. So who knows? We might bring him back, honestly, now that we got a little more of that Waller cash. And then Xavier McKinney, who just, frankly, he's gotten Green Bay. I don't think he's looked the same since he decided to take a trip with an ATV over in Mexico and break his hand. So those are our losses. And who do we add? None other than Drew Lock, who is quarterback 2, quarterback 1. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Running back Devin Singletary, who will definitely be the running back 1 there. Some lineman help in John Runyon and Jermaine Eleanor. Both guys who have starting experience who may be asked to step up. And the biggest addition, biggest 2 additions really on both sides of the ball. You got the stud edge Brian Burns coming over from Carolina, being saved from, it's hard to think there's worse situations than the New York Giants have had over the past couple of years, but Carolina is probably one of them. And then wide receiver Malik Neighbors, who is electric, folks. If you have not watched any highlight tapes, and as much as I hate to say this because he torched my Gators like a lot of teams did last year, that he is a fun special player. They also picked up a good safety out of Minnesota, the best safety in the draft, Tyler Nubin. All right, I'll let you go first. What are your takeaways? What are you thinking as far as what the Giants did in free agency?
I mean, I keep forgetting to do this, but I really need to jump on Spotify or Apple Tunes or whatever it is to listen to some of these hits that Darren Waller is dropping, just like Danny Dimes is dropping footballs all over the field, all over the turf. I mean, anyways.
Make sure you check out Kadarius Tony, aka Young Joka, while you're at it.
Yeah, I'll get right on that. I think this is basically the same team.
But
overall, it is. I mean, obviously, you add Brian Burns, you add a slot receiver in Malik Neighbors, but you lose the darling child of your franchise over the last 3, 4, 5 years, however long Saquon Barkley is, for a Devin Singletary. The fact that we are bringing up Drew Lock as a notable addition, I think says it all, to be honest with you. But no, in reality, I think they did what they should do in terms of bringing in offensive line help, because that offensive line was atrocious. They bring in some help on the pass rush with Brian Burns, which does give them a formidable pass rush with Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. Obviously, they have a stud in the center of that defensive line in Dexter Lawrence. But yeah, I mean, in general, I just don't see where this team's getting much better. I think it's going to be a very similar
season
style of season to last year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I will say, we talked about the loss of Sterling Shepard. That tells me that the tide's turning, folks. Look, I put up this boat picture on the graphic for a reason. He is the last of that curse to leave the New York Football Giants facility. So the curse has been lifted. That's what I'm calling for. We got a brand new, young, very fast, and electric wide receiver core. So I think we can make some changes. But before we get into all that, let's talk about some of these injuries here. First, most notably, Daniel Jones coming off that ACL tear. Tore it in November 5th, 2023 against the Las Vegas Raiders, where he tore it and then thought he was fine, tried to play another snap, and just literally fell down and took another sack, which was just painful to watch. He's got only 10 months until week 1. I will say quarterbacks tend to come back a little bit sooner off ACL tears and it'll be a little bit better, a la Joe Burrow and some of the other types that we've seen in the past. But what are we thinking about Daniel Jones 10 months from his ACL tear?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I'm not terribly concerned. Obviously, Daniel Jones does have some running capabilities.
Vanilla Vic, baby. Put some respect on the name.
Yeah. I think in general, I'm not too concerned with Daniel Jones returning. I don't know if he'll necessarily be fully in tune with some of those new additions to the wide receiver room.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of young wide receivers there. So it'll be interesting to see how long Daniel Jones lasts versus Drew Lock. Do we get the Daniel Jones of 2022 versus the shell of that early part of last year?
Yeah. No, as much as I love the New York Football Giants and I'm a passionate fan, my expectations are a bit tempered for this team. Maybe it's the saltiness and just the sour taste left in my mouth from last season. But I would not, this is someone in fantasy, even as a Giants fan, I'm not really going after, just because that mobility issue, at least early on, it can be an issue. If they're going to be successful, he's going to have to do a lot more and operate from the pocket. So it's going to be a lot on that offensive line. If they've really got to give him time, which they have really not given him his whole career, and he's had to run for his life. But you talked about the addition of John Runyon and Jermaine Elmanor. It's Evan Neal needs to step the fuck up. It's about damn time that he kind of delivers. So that's just the thing is early on, I don't think he can rely as much on his leg as he's had needed to in the past. Yep. Moving on to Darius Slayton, the wide receiver who's really been the wide receiver 1 for the Giants sneakily. I think this is a guy that I always try to target in a sneaky fashion, whether it's in the prop market or on the fantasy terms, because he's basically free. He's coming off a thumb ligament surgery at the end of the season. He got it after the season ended. 3 to 6 month recovery timeline. He's got 8 months. Not a whole lot of concerns. He was already practicing for OTAs and coming back and kind of work his way in. So I'm not super concerned there. And then Daniel Bellinger, who's slated to be the starting tight end after Darren Waller had decided he wanted to wrap his way to irrelevancy. He picked up a minor undisclosed injury. He was a limited participation in minicamp. All expectations point to him being perfectly fine for training camp. But from a fantasy perspective, he is going to be battling with rookie tight end Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson is someone who has much more of a receiving threat. Daniel Bellinger is a lot more of your traditional old school tight end who's going to lay down a good block and potentially, come out on a delay route or something in the flat, but he's not going to be anything like a Darren Waller type. So, is Theo Johnson going to be able to step up as a rookie and deliver? At tight end for the Giants is not a position I'm targeting at all. Bigger one that I'll ask you about here is Evan Neal coming off an ankle fracture where he had to have surgery. Only a 4 to 6 month usual expected recovery timeline. He's got 8 months. He participated in OTAs, but he held him out of June mini camp because it looks like he just was not ready. What are you thinking there?
By week 1, I think Evan Neal will be perfectly fine. with most fractures, as we've said before, it's all about that healing timeline, that 6 to 8 weeks typically, but we have surgery on top of this, so it is a little bit more extended.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they need him out there. I don't know as far as their offensive
line. Do we
line.
need him out there? Jeez.
Well,
yeah,
the franchise would hope to have him out there.
Yeah.
Whether that's a great decision, maybe. But I'm not terribly concerned with that injury.
Yeah, I would agree. It's just more the player that gives me more pause and concern. He's had a real difficulty staying on the field, and when he is on the field, he's not been good, to put it frank. Not been good. Yep. All right, let's go ahead and get into some of these takeaways. Look, the quarterback 1 situation, they kind of came out and said that Daniel Jones is the starter and there's not really a battle. I think this is more just talking about like the health of Daniel Jones and, is he going to be ready and things like that. I will say, now, obviously, this may be a little biased, but I do think they have one of the better defensive lines in the league. You have Dexter Lawrence, who's one of the best players in the NFL. You have Brian Burns. You have Kayvon Thibodeau, who are stud pass rushers. You even got Azeez Ojulari. And you got guys like Raheem Roches, and DJ Davidson. Davidson's more of a younger player, kind of an unknown guy, but Nunez Roches is one of those run stoppers up, and that really is just a huge, massive human being that can clog up the middle. So I do like their defensive line there, and especially that pass rush with that combination of Thibodeau and Brian Burns. But it really is going to all come down to is this offensive line going to be able to create any holes or protect Daniel Jones like it's been from the last 5 years since this man's been drafted? Can we do something to protect him and give him a shot to actually look like a decent quarterback? What about you? What concerns do you got? What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I think those are obviously the 3 biggest ones, and then probably the defensive secondary. Probably not the deepest or most talented going into the season, but we'll see how they come out. Cordell,
young group,
Tyler Nubin, Jason Pinnock.
Yeah,
names that don't really excite me too much, but we'll see. The front 7 obviously has some talent all over the place. So,
yeah, no, I would agree with you there. I think, looking at this team, I think Michael McFadden's a question mark at the other linebacker outside of Karakay, Cordell Flott, and Pinnock. Although Pinnock has played pretty well, I think Tyler Nubin will do well. He is a rookie. Really, that I really would have loved for them, and they still might. There's still time, and they got the money coming in from Darren Waller, which was I mean, hey, if he's not going to be out there, I'm glad he said that he's just going to retire because we do get like a pretty significant amount of money back. So hopefully we can either, whether it's bringing Adoree Jackson back or picking up somebody, even if it's Stephon Gilmore or somebody. I don't know if Gilmore got picked up by somebody yet.
I don't think so. I think he's still out there.
Yeah, if he's still out there, but somebody to fill that secondary, that cornerback 2 slot, because Cordell Flott, he can do some things in the slot, but I just don't think he's starting NFL cornerback caliber talent. All right. I will let you go first on the New York Giants, who again were 6-11 last year and have a win total of 6.5 wins with the over at plus 115. I will let you go first because I have a feeling that you are going to be a little bit more pessimistic than I am on the Giants season. So why don't you go? What's your best bets or any major fantasy takeaways?
Well, I will say that I do like the running back number in terms of Devin Singletary. I like him at over 750 rushing yards.
Okay.
But going back to losing quote unquote Benedict Barkley, I don't know if they have much. Eric Gray's still there, but he's their dude at this point.
There's not a lot behind him, I'll tell you that. Yeah,
exactly. So I think he will go over this number. I think the last 3 seasons that he has been the guy, he has gone over this number by quite a bit, really. So I really like that over at minus 110. And then this is where this may be the end of the DGen Docs, because I really only see the New York Football Giants getting 1 win in the first 5 games of the NFL season. So
blasphemy.
The reason why I'm saying that is mostly just due to their schedule. If we pull up their schedule here, they have Minnesota week 1.
Win.
I think that's a toss-up one. At Washington.
Absolutely a win.
Maybe a toss-up. So if I have 2 toss-ups, I'll give them 1.
Okay.
At Cleveland, no shot.
Deshaun Watson's gonna be hurt by then. Okay.
Versus Dallas. I already got Dallas winning twice. And then at Seattle.
Win.
I don't think they go out to Seattle and win against the 12th man. So I think they have potential to win one of those first 2 games. I would just be sad if they go 0-5, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right.
To start the season. So
I gotta look up the odds for. I gotta look up the odds for them to go 5-0 because I see a lot of wins on that schedule. But hey, maybe looking a little differently. All right. Do you have anything else for them?
Nope, that's it.
All right. I was just about to tell you that your Devin Singletary play, I think, is a good play. And what is he in 6 years in his league? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the league. He's hit that number 4 out of the 5 years, getting pretty close. The 1 year he missed. So I do like that play. The other one, we're just gonna skip over for the benefit of our friendship. All right. So
what do you have for the good people?
For my best bets for the New York Football Giants, look, again, I am a very passionate fan. I do love this team. I do not have crazy high expectations for them going into this season like I did last year. I think I was a lot higher coming off that 2022 season. I'm trying to temper expectations. However, my first bet is over 6.5 wins at plus 115. I just think we saw essentially the worst case situation with this team last season when they went 6-11. So I don't think it can get worse for this team. So I'm going to go over 6.5 wins at plus 115. The other side of the coin there, I'm going to go with they're going to take an opposite approach there. Similar to what Derek was talking about with his Commanders under 2.5 division wins. Look, if there's one thing the New York Football Giants have done in this past, 5-10 year stretch where they've been pretty mediocre, it's beat the Washington Commanders. I'm going for the Giants to go 2-0 and sweep the Commanders at a nice plus 210. They did it last year. And look, I don't know what it is. Daniel Jones does not have a great career record when it comes to wins, but he absolutely knows how to beat this Washington team. And I think that they will do that again. So give me that at plus 210. And then my one of my favorite bets is rookie wide receiver Malik Neighbors to lead the rookie receivers in yards, receiving yards, that is, at plus 600, 6-1. I understand Marvin Harrison Jr. is the favorite for a reason, but I think Malik Neighbors comes into this team and is automatically the wide receiver 1. So I really like Malik Neighbors to have a great season and lead rookie receivers at 6-1. I think is a really good price. He's at the same price as a guy like Keon Coleman, who I would be very shocked if that happens in Buffalo. So I really like Neighbors. I think you're getting good value, even though he's not a crazy long shot. All right, what are your thoughts on those?
Okay. No, I see where you're coming from with the Neighbors point. I think at the price, I can see where you're coming from there. To kind of go or kind of be devil's advocate, if you will.
Yeah.
Ken Coleman's quarterback situation probably a little bit better, and it's still probably their number one option.
Yeah, hard to argue. I guess I guess I don't see, and we'll talk about where we're wrapping up the NFC, so we'll talk about Buffalo here in the coming weeks. But I just don't see him as the clear number one option with Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel, and just a guy who maybe because he's a Florida State Seaman Hole, I'm not super high on. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, in general, I honestly don't see them getting 7 wins this year. But in general, I think they are that like 6 to 7 win team. Like I
yeah,
think they're
I'm not.
right around the same spot they were last year. So would it surprise me if they got 7? No. Would it surprise me if they got 5? No.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think I'm not calling for any like a double digit win season, but I think for me 7 or 8 wins is in the realm of possibilities. So, all right, folks, we just crushed the NFC East, the NFC Beast, breaking down all the free agencies, getting in depth on these teams, talking big injury stuff. Fantasy football, and of course, getting you some action on the sports books here. So we're going to do a quick recap, and then we're going to get the hell out of here. So, quick recap of the NFC best bets. I will let you go first, sir. Why don't you run down your list here?
I got Jaden Daniels, rookie of the year, at plus 550. I got Washington going under 2.5 division wins at minus 105. Saquon Barkley to get at least 3 touchdowns against the New York Football Giants at plus 225.
Bullshit.
Dax to have the most passing yards in the league at plus 650. Dallas to go 2-0 against the Giants at plus money at 105. The Giants to go 1-4 in the first 5 weeks to go at 265, and then Devin Singletary over 750 rushing yards at minus 110.
All right, and for myself, we got wide receiver Terry McLaurin for the Washington Commandos to go over 900.5 receiving yards like he has every time he's been in the league. Your Philadelphia Eagles to go under 10.5 wins. Your Philadelphia to miss the playoffs at plus 180. Benedict Barkley under 6.5 rushing touchdowns. Tight end for your Dallas Cowboys, Jake Ferguson over 675.5 receiving yards. Malik Neighbors, wide receiver for your New York Football Giants to lead the rookie receivers in receiving yards at plus 600. Giants to take out the Commandos again, as they do almost every year, 2-0, sweep them, plus 210. And then Giants over 6.5 win at plus 115. All right, folks, we have done it. Do we have anything for the people, Derek, before we get out of here?
No, I know this was a little bit of a longer one, but once we start talking about our own teams, our own divisions, some of us get a little heated. Some of us like to spill a little bit more than what things probably deserve. But
hey, no, we appreciate you rocking with us, folks. Again, that you can see that we care, and this is we obviously care about the picks because we're putting our real money down, but we care about it because we love football, and that's what we hope you most take out of this is that you hopefully gain something, whether it's on the injury front or the fantasy front or from the sports books. That's what we're looking to do. Create a community that just loves football and wants to win some money with us. So these are our handles there on the X. So for Derek, you can follow him at SGPN Prof, and for me at the DGen Doc. So I'm on X and TikTok. Derek is on just the X there. As we were going to look to expand his social media portfolio here in the future. But we appreciate you guys rocking with us. Again, we have wrapped up the NFC East. That is all 4 NFC divisions. So your National Football Conference there. So we are going to be moving on to the AFC sometime next week. hey, again, as a new show, we appreciate y'all. So give us a like, comment, subscribe, something you want to see, some players
Any
that
kind
you
of feedback. We love it.
give us the feedback. We're just starting out early on, so we appreciate it. And as always, folks, we hope you enjoyed the show. Again, just two healthcare professionals who look at the game a different way, and we love football and we love making money off football. So we appreciate it. So from all of us at the DGen Docs, which is just the two of us, so I don't know why I said all of us, but we hope you have a great week. We hope you take care and join us next week as we start breaking down the AFC. All right, folks, we are out of here. What's up, DGens? Doc here. As a proud member of the U.S. Army and a lover of football, sometimes those two things cross over on here. But as you probably already know, as a lowly captain, these are just my opinions. These are not opinions that are representative of the entire DoD or the U.S. Army. The same thing goes for any references to any commercial products or hyperlinks. Again, that does not constitute an endorsement from the DoD or the Army. I hope you enjoyed the show, and as always, let it ride, baby.